Hi folks, HR Funk here, back with the third installment in my video series where I am assessing the Kel-Tec Sub2000 as an active threat response option. If you saw my last video, you know I went to the range with the Sub2000 and I did some shooting with it, and at the end of that shooting I was pretty favorably impressed. But I did mention toward the end of the video a couple of enhancements that I think could be made to the Sub2000 that could improve its shootability and maybe even improve its capabilities a little bit. One of the things that I mentioned was the height of the rear sight. Essentially, in order to get proper sight alignment and sight picture, I have to press my face down on the receiver tube to try to get my eye to line up properly with the rear sight aperture. Essentially, the rear sight is just a little bit too short. As a result of doing that and pressing my face down on the receiver extension tube, when I fire the Sub2000, although the recoil is not tremendous, I get a sharp rap on my cheekbone each time I fire the carbine. In an effort to address those two situations, I've gotten a couple of upgraded parts from a company called Carbo, and I'm going to install those on my Sub2000 and see if that makes the improvement that I'm looking for. Now, I don't want to extensively modify the Sub2000 over its factory construction. For those reasons, I'm only going to be adding 3 parts today, and those 3 parts specifically deal with those issues I mentioned a couple of minutes ago. To begin with, I'm going to be adding the Carbo rear sight. By the way, there's the name of the company. And this also is an aperture sight, just like the factory sight, but it's a little bit higher, and that's to help with that more natural sight alignment and sight picture by allowing me to raise my head and my face just a little bit when I bring the Sub2000 up to fire. Also, I'm adding the Carbo receiver extension cover, or bolt tube cover, I think is what they call it. What this does is add a little bit of cushioning to that extension tube. That way, when I have my face there and I fire the Sub2000, that recoil impulse is not slamming metal directly against my cheekbone. I've got a little bit of a rubber cushion. It also helps a little bit with insulation when it's extremely cold out or extremely hot, that I'm not putting the skin of my face on that metal extension tube. The last part that I'm adding also deals with recoil, and this is a recoil buffer. Really, all this is a polymer donut, if you will, that goes behind the recoil spring and between the rear of the bolt and the factory buffer to absorb that shock a little bit. And I think between the extension tube cover and this buffer, that should effectively eliminate a lot of that sharp smack against my cheekbone when I fire the Sub2000. So what I'm going to do is stop the video and install these parts, then I'll start it back up again and let you know what I think of them. I'm not going to use video time to show the installation. If you go to the Carbo website, they already have very good videos showing how to install all their different products. And by the way, they have products for a lot more than just the Sub2000, but the Sub2000 is one of the firearms that they extensively support on that particular site. So here we go. I'm going to stop things. I'm going to install these parts. Then I'll come back and let you know what I think of them. And the Carbo parts are now installed. I have that rear sight. I also have the tube cover back here, and that buffer is inside the extension tube between the rear of the bolt carrier and the factory buffer. A few thoughts right off the top. That rear sight is definitely higher. It's definitely more natural to bring that up and get my sight picture through there. That is a much needed upgrade for the Sub2000, at least for me shooting it. Also, this tube cover is a lot more comfortable. I still have to press my face down on there a little bit, but not as much as I did before. I think if I had put the tube cover on without the higher front sight, I probably would not have been able to use the factory front sight anymore, because this raises up my face or my cheek just a little bit more because there's a little bit of thickness to that cover. Also, with the buffer installed, the bolt still locks to the rear. There's no problem with that. And everything seems to function just right. I'm looking forward to getting out and shooting this Sub2000 with these upgrades to see how much difference it really makes on the range. Another nice thing about the Carbo rear sight as opposed to the factory rear sight is the fact that it can be lowered if you're going to be using a red dot optic. And that's something I may have in the future for this particular carbine. I haven't decided yet if I'm going to add a red dot, but it's nice to know that if I do, and I want to get that rear sight out of the way, then I can remove it and be able to use my red dot optic without having that obscure the sight picture. Now, one thing I noticed with the installation is this rear sight is kind of a tight fit. It takes a little bit of work to move that up and down. Now, when I'm opening the carbine, it comes up all by itself, and there's really no more effort required with that than there was with the front sight. But when I am physically lowering it and raising it, that does take a little bit of effort. Otherwise, everything still seems to work the same. When I close the Sub2000, the thickness of the tube cover causes it to require just a little bit more to get the carbine to lock in the folded position, but when I open it, there's no more effort required at all in the deployment. By the way, for anyone who might be concerned about that extension tube cover covering up the serial number, there's a window for that, so it's still perfectly visible. Now, because the rear sight on the M Carbo replacement sight is higher than the factory front sight, I'm expecting when I go out to the range, I'm going to see a shift in my point of impact, and I'm probably going to be hitting a little bit high, and I'll have to make an elevation adjustment to my front sight to bring that point of impact back in line with my point of aim. But I don't expect it's going to be major, probably just a little bit. The M Carbo rear sight also has a larger aperture than the factory sight, so I might lose a little bit of precision, but I'm gaining speed of target acquisition as I come up and look through that larger aperture. And we're on to the second topic that I want to cover in today's video. That is actually carrying the Sub2000. Now, all the way back in the first video where I was talking about the Sub2000 as an active threat response option, I was talking about trying to come up with a way to carry it inconspicuously while I'm going through my daily routine, while I'm at a school or at a mall or wherever I might be, so I can have it instantly accessible, but not have it look quite so conspicuous. In the last week or so, I must have looked at every bag and every backpack available from every manufacturer that you can find online somewhere. And all of them had features that I like, or I should say a lot of them had features that I liked. A lot of them had features I didn't like, and I could not come up with one that had all the features I liked and none of the features I didn't like. What I did eventually was move away from the idea of a backpack to more of a messenger bag style. Now, this particular messenger bag is something that I've owned for some time, and it's not a bad option for the Sub2000. It fits in here, although it just barely fits. It's a little bit of a tight fit to get it down in there, but as you can see, once it's inside, it works pretty well. In order to access it, I only have to overcome one buckle, and this was something, as I was evaluating all the other various bags out there, that became a little bit of a challenge to have something that would allow me to access whatever place inside the bag or the pack or whatever the Sub2000 was going to be without having to undo zippers and buckles and snaps and straps and everything else. With this old messenger bag that I have, all I have to do is undo one buckle, get that out of the way, reach inside, I've got my Sub2000, and I can deploy it just that quickly if the need should arise. I also wanted to add something that, if I would find myself in one of these situations, could help to identify me as a good guy. Anytime you're not in uniform and not part of a response team that's coming to deal with an active threat, there is the chance that you, in plain clothes, could be mistaken for the bad guy. So I was trying to come up with a way to help to identify myself if I find myself in that kind of a situation. I could probably even pull this around more to the front if I needed to, just hopefully to get a little bit of identification. Now, this is not a guarantee. It's not a guarantee I won't get shot by a good guy. It's not a guarantee that all the other people that are involved in this situation will recognize immediately that I am a police officer. But I am trying to make that effort. The other nice thing about the messenger bag concept is it gives me a lot of other pockets where I can store extra magazines. I can keep first aid equipment in here. I can have tourniquets. I can have whatever other support gear I think I might need available to me, all inside of the messenger bag. Basically, yes, it's a man purse. But again, this one is kind of light duty. I'm a little worried about how long it's going to last carrying the Sub2000. And as I said a couple of minutes ago, it's also a pretty tight fit to get it down in here. So I came up with another option that I'm going to show you here momentarily that I think works a little bit better. This is the carry bag that I've selected for the moment. This is called the Navigator Bag. It's made by Red Rock Outdoors, and it has a variety of features that I really like and a couple that I don't. But like I said, this is the best compromise I've come up with so far. As far as features I don't like, to begin with, it's still got that tactical look. We've got MOLLE on the front, which I prefer not to have. But otherwise, it works pretty well, and it allows me access to the Sub2000 very quickly, just like that. But the bag has to be set up right in order to access it that quick. The handles on top of the Navigator bag allow it, and I'm going to take it off here. Allow the bag to be carried briefcase style. And they are the type of handles that can be attached together to make one carry handle rather than two different ones. Obviously, if I've got the handles Velcroed together just like that, I'm not going to be able to access the Sub2000 as quickly as I did a moment ago. I would first have to undo the handles, then remove the zipper. So I'm making a habit of not attaching the handles together. And usually if I'm carrying it over my shoulder, the handles are just hanging down to the side. Also, there are buckles inside here that snap over the top, again restricting the access to this main compartment where my Sub2000 would be. With those, I've just simply taken them and zipped them down inside these front pockets so they're out of the way and there's no way they're going to get tangled or anything else inside of this area if I'm reaching for that zipper. Speaking of the zipper, I have two opposing zippers on the Navigator bag. Each of them has a zipper pull. The one that I'm using is the one that I can pull backward. So the zipper pull for the other zipper that I don't want, I put down inside, so as I reach over here and grab it, I only have one zipper pull available to me to grab, and that's the proper one to unzip the bag and access my Sub2000. I also position this second zipper right here so I know exactly where to reach to be able to open the bag and access it. Also, there's storage in here for my extended magazine. There's a lot of storage in the bag for other things, like I talked about a moment ago, first aid equipment or whatever you might need. And I could even have things in here that aren't related. I could put my iPad in here, or I could put other items if I just wanted to have them with me. But the main thing is this center storage compartment, which is padded, and that's another thing I like about it, because it protects the Sub2000 while it's in here. And not only does it have the shoulder strap, which is removable, I can take this off if I want to carry it briefcase style, and it has the briefcase handles, and it has another handle on this end if I happen to pick it up this way or want to carry it that way. And the other option that it has for a carry method, and let me take this strap off for a second, are two backpack straps that clip onto the sides. So if I get tired of carrying this with the shoulder strap and I want to wear it as a backpack, all I have to do is pull out the straps, which are conveniently stored down inside this compartment, by the way. Snap those in place. And now my Navigator bag becomes a backpack. This is one of the things I really liked about the Navigator bag, was all the different ways it allowed me to carry it. If I decide I don't want to carry it this way anymore, I take it off, I put the straps back down inside, and I go back to carrying it in one of the other methods. Now, as I said, there were things I liked about all the various carry methods that I evaluated, and things that I didn't like. One of the things that I liked about the Navigator bag is the fact it has this compartment with Velcro where I can put this police patch, but it also doesn't open real well to allow that to be seen unless I completely unbuckle the sides, and then I have to worry about this thing getting down and flopping around as I'm trying to move. I also have a place on the front where I can apply a police patch, hopefully right side up, but I have to take the time to actually do that. What I would like to see is something that very easily I could open up and identify myself as a police officer without having to do too many more buckles or snaps or anything else just to be able to get that identification. Also, if there's a company looking to make money on something like this, to carry a pistol caliber carbine or a shoulder fire option for police officers to be able to use, if they could come up with a way to have not only the identification easily removable on the pack, but also to add a Kevlar panel or two to the inside, and then come up with an easy way that it could be put on so that if an officer found themselves responding in an active threat environment, they would have identification across here and also some ballistic protection. Now this, surprisingly, this is the first time I've ever done this, and it stays on there pretty well. If I was running through a school, I don't know how well it would be, but it would be better than nothing. In fact, I might even grab some old ballistic panels and put them inside here and see if I can come up with a way to rig this up myself. Folks, this whole system is still very much a work in progress, but I feel like I am making progress toward having an instantly accessible shoulder fire platform if I would find myself in an active threat environment. Now, one of the things that I've done recently to try a little bit of this out is I've actually carried the Sub2000 in that other messenger bag that I showed you a little while ago. A couple of times here recently, going to the store, going one place and another. Not that I thought that I was going to be in an active threat incident, but I just wanted to try out that carry method and see if it was going to be obtrusive and see really how much people noticed it. And for the most part, people didn't pay any attention to me. Of course, then again, people never pay too much attention to me. Sooner or later, sooner hopefully, I'm going to get out to the range with the Sub2000 again, and I want to try it out with these modifications installed to see how the taller front sight is going to work, make sure I don't have any issues with functioning because I've added that buffer, and just generally try it out and see how it's going to work. I'm expecting that I'm going to have to make a sight correction, probably moving my point of impact down so I have point of impact and point of aim corresponding, now that I put the new M-Carbo higher rear sight on the Sub2000. And after that, it's going to go into my pack, and I'm going to keep developing this whole process or this whole system, and eventually I think I'm going to get to the point where I'm pretty happy with it. If you have any questions or comments on this video, as always, be sure to leave those below. As I develop new ideas and new concepts for the Sub2000 and this entire active threat option carry system, I'll let you know. And as always, until next time, good shooting. Bye-bye.